What's going on, Packers fans? Happy Wednesday. Welcome into an all-new episode of the Packaday podcast. I'm your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. You can find the podcast at Packaday Podcast. In just a moment, we're going to be joined by the Paul Farrington Show to break down some stuff that went on in the NFC North this past weekend, look ahead at the games this week, and really just look across the NFL and the parity that is really out there and some of the crazy things that are going on in KC and in Baltimore, and just how right now it feels like the NFL is completely wide open and why Green Bay is still one of the key contenders in the league, especially even from like a betting odds standpoint and everything like that. Really fun conversation with Paul and Ziggy. So you're going to want to stick around. Of course, the big news of the day from a Packers standpoint had nothing to do with the Green Bay Packers, but instead was with the Cincinnati Bengals. In fact, trading for a quarterback, which we discussed as a possibility as it got later and later with nothing happening on Monday. And then Tuesday, kind of to start the day, still no trade. You're like, well, even if they trade for somebody, not sure they're going to be able to come in and start for Cincinnati this weekend. But Cincinnati goes out and gets Joe Flacco from their division rival, interestingly enough, a late round swap of picks. They basically got him completely for nothing, allows Gabriel to be the starter in Cleveland and Shedeur Sanders to back him up. Meanwhile, allows, in all likelihood, Joe Flacco to be the starter. Whether or not that happens this week or not remains to be seen. If I were betting on it right now, I would expect Joe Flacco to be the starter. Vegas doesn't seem to care at all. Even with the addition of Flacco, the line stayed at 14.5 points as Green Bay is the favorite, of course, in that game. And I'm with them. I don't think that this matters whether it's Flacco or Sean Clifford or Jake Browning. This is a game that Green Bay just has to go out and take care of business. And at home, I expect them to absolutely do that. But it definitely changes the calculus on what Jeff Hafley is thinking, how he goes about preparing for this game. The great news is that Green Bay's already faced Joe Flacco and they had great success against him. And they know how to kind of combat exactly his style of play. So it's not like they're trading for somebody that Green Bay didn't expect completely out of the blue and they haven't prepared for. They already know Flacco very, very well. And now it's just within a new offense. And if anything, he's probably not as familiar with the offense. The offensive line for Cincinnati is really bad. Pair that with Joe Flacco, and it's usually not a great series of events. But Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, that wide receiver room gets a quarterback that, if nothing else, has the ability to maybe give them some jump balls, go up and get it. We know Flacco is going to maybe take some risks from time to time as well. So we'll see how that changes the outcome of this game and see how Cincinnati can maybe compete on offense a little bit better, if at all. But I'll say it one more time. We don't even know yet if Joe Flacco is going to be the starter. Could be Jake Browning, could be Sean Clifford. We just don't know at this point in time, but I would expect that Joe Flacco is going to be the starter. Before we get to anything else, want to remind you as well about Alchemy Wealth Management. Joe Flacco probably getting ready for retirement soon. He should be using, retirewithryan.net to kind of get ready for that retirement. Love working with Ryan. Awesome to work with. Awesome dude. And again, so cool of him just to have this for Packers fans and for fans of the Packaday podcast to go out and get a free consultation. Alchemy Wealth Management, retirewithryan.net. Go get your retirement started today or enhanced. Even if you're in a good place right now, you can always be in a better place, and Ryan can help you with that also. So check him out, retirewithryan.net. And of course, Luigi's Frozen Pizzas. This is the easiest thing in the world. You're going to go to the grocery store soon anyway. So just waltz down to the frozen pizza section. Make sure that you're checking out Luigi's Frozen Pizzas. They're the best. They're simply the best. And the number one thing I can always tell you about this is I felt this way well before I had any partnership with Luigi's. I posted it on Twitter. It's the best frozen pizza out there. I love the sauce. I love the toppings. Their mozzarella is second to none. And they have all the flavors and toppings that you can possibly imagine. So get to that freezer section, pick out your favorites, get like 3 of everything while you're at it, bring it home and enjoy on game days, whether it's the Packers, whether it's not the Packers, whatever you're doing. It doesn't even have to be a game day. Just make sure you got some Luigi's pizzas on hand. Your family's going to love them. Your kids are going to love them. Most importantly, you're going to love them. Check them out, luigispizza.com, and over on social media at Luigi's Pizza. Now let's get to our great conversation with the Paul Farrington Show.
Welcome into Behind Enemy Lines, a collaboration between the Packaday podcast featuring Andy Herman right here and the Paul Farrington Show. Paul Farrington joined by Robert Ziggy Ziegler, who's back at Harvard University after a trip to Iceland where Ziggy, fortunately for you, you've gone back and watched the entire Viking game knowing that we won, but we're lucky enough to not have to sit through that disaster 9:30 in the morning, waking up here on the East Coast to watch the Vikings for a second straight week in Europe. But there was one thing I forgot, guys, as the game was going on, and I'm like, we can't lose to the Browns. Like, this would just be horrendous. I forgot that we were in London. And that's the Vikings are undefeated. They never lose in London. So, of course, Carson Wentz is able to lead the game-winning drive to the priorly suspended Jordan Addison for the first quarter of the game to walk off the Cleveland Browns, as all good teams can do. And that was not a shot at the Packers. that was
the funny thing is I thought that's where you're going. Is like, as I was watching this game, I remembered the Packers already lost to the Browns. So it's like, I thought that's where you were going with it, but then you went London. So that was better.
Yeah, no, an unintentional shot at Green Bay, even though with the trajectory of this Viking season, I guess we'll get into it a little bit more later on. It might be one of the few shots at Green Bay we can actually take this year. And I guess we'll have to hold that throughout the rest of the Behind the Enemy Line series. We'll probably be referencing the Vikings, Packers, and Browns matchups. But Ziggy, why don't we go over to you real quick? And actually, how was your trip? Did you have a good time? It's nice to see you back.
It's there was hail, there was wind, there was rain. These are the obstacles you have to overcome to enjoy Iceland. But it was a decent time. I'm glad to see that Andy's wearing a Packers hat. With the skull last week that he broke out, I wasn't quite sure where the allegiance lay. So it's good to see you supporting your team again. I know it was tough after the Packers lost, but
tie.
The Vikings, we are a team that knows how to beat Cleveland. I'm just saying.
It's not fair. You guys didn't have to go against Joe Flacco, which now Green Bay might have to go against twice, in a few weeks span. So it's not apples to apples. You can't compare the two, really.
Yeah, I can't believe that you guys got if Flacco, Ziggy, you said if Flacco beats Green Bay, it's the first quarterback in like 95 years to beat a team, to win on another team against the same team twice in a season.
The last player to do that was Jack Kemp for the New York Titans. He beat the Chargers and the Bills. Or with the Chargers and the Bills, he beat the Titans. So I'm pretty sure that became the Jets. I don't know. I don't actually know what happened to the New York Titans, but it's been a long time.
If Flacco beat you guys, Andy, if you guys lost to the Bengals, and we'll have some week 6 predictions and look aheads towards the end of the show here, but I can't fathom what the show next week will look like.
I can tell you, I will be on vacation next week is what the show will look like. It will be Andy-less next week if the Bengals beat the Packers and Joe Flacco goes 2-0 against the Packers this year. I might need the time off, to be honest. I might just go back to Vegas for another week and you try to forget about everything. Yeah, that obviously can't happen. We'll get into that eventually, but that would be brutal to say the least.
So before we do get there, why don't we start off? Oh, and please, if you're enjoying the content, remember to like, comment, and subscribe to the Paul Farrington Show, Packaday podcast. Let us know how you're feeling about your team in the comment section below. We appreciate everyone who's been listening so far. An awesome start for Behind Enemy Lines. So we'll dive into Andy's enemy, the Vikings here, 21-17. They beat the Browns, the Dylan Gabriel-led Cleveland Browns in London. Ziggy, as the other Viking fan on this show, when you went back and were rewatching this game here, are you leaving this game feeling confident about the Vikings' future?
Well, I did say I was more afraid of Dylan Gabriel than Joe Flacco because I didn't think Gabriel would make the dramatic mistakes that Flacco did. And actually, that more or less bore out. I felt like he played a decent game. Quinshon Judkins was productive on the ground. The thing I liked about the Vikings in this game is this felt like the first game in a while where we just were consistently okay throughout the game. It wasn't like one quarter where the Vikings surged and everywhere else things struggled. Like, they were able to put together a solid game. Carson Wentz, I felt, was his best performance ever. No, but he certainly got the job done. It was great to see Jordan Addison have a couple of big plays. In general, just seeing the Vikings play solid football for most of the game did make me feel better compared to some of the earlier weeks where it felt like this team couldn't string 2 good drives together.
I feel like you might be being a little generous on good football.
I'm doing my best. I don't want to come on here and say we beat the Browns by 4 points. The sky's falling. I'm out on Minnesota. That'll come later. Yeah. But at least they played good football for more than a quarter. You got to give me that, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're a little more optimistic than I am at this point in time, reflecting on the game, because I'm just going back. I'm looking at our drive chart here. Second quarter, we went 6 plays, punt, 3 and out, end of half. And I remember I'm watching this game going, man, I understand the Cleveland defense is very strong. They've had one of the better starts in the year outside of their game against Detroit. But it just felt like almost a rewatch of the Steeler game where the Vikings have a 3 and out to start the game, essentially. We get the ball back, an impressive drive. Next thing you know, ball's on the ground. And the Cleveland Browns take it and wind up going back for a touchdown on their ensuing drive. And here we are, 7-0 down in Europe. And I'm just looking at this game going, man, we can't stop beating ourselves these past few weeks. Again, consistently getting back into 3rd and long, and Wentz, we turned the ball over. We have a missed field goal. It just seemed like it was this stringing together of mistakes where the Steelers were able to put us away with it. The Browns are just, I know that you were afraid of Dylan Gabriel, or more afraid of Dylan Gabriel than Joe Flacco, Ziggy. I personally thought you have to bury a rookie quarterback like that. And, we were able to do a decent job, but you still find yourself down 17-14 in the fourth quarter. And I think we were just lucky that it was the Cleveland Browns we were playing, because I didn't personally feel the Vikings played well enough to where they probably should have won that football game. It was just, we just so happened to be going against one of the worst teams in football. So I didn't feel great.
I got to stand up for my boy Will Reichert here. I don't want to hear about him missing that field goal. That was 100% on the camera wire.
Did you see that, Andy?
I did see that. There's a lot of camera wire stuff. Another one hit in the Dallas game. A ball was batted back and it hit the camera, that actually hit the camera itself. And then that one hit the camera wire. I think there was one other one too. But it was a wild week for the eye in the sky.
But, it was just, I'm watching the Vikings play right now, and getting a win is all that matters, right? When you go to 3-2, we're sitting here right now, if the season ended today, the Vikings would miraculously be in the playoffs. It just doesn't feel like, it doesn't feel like we're playing football that's going to beat teams like the Packers or the Eagles or the Lions, all these teams that we have coming up on our schedule now. The Vikings, to me, feel closer to the Falcons and the Browns and the Bears and the teams that you've seen some tighter contests with. So personally, right now, I'm not feeling so great. Andy, you might have a clearer picture of it.
I have three random Vikings questions for you for the week, and I'll let you guys answer. Number one, do we know what the Jordan Addison suspension was for? Do we know what actually happened there for why he was out for the first quarter?
I believe he missed a walkthrough. That's what I heard. Now, I'm not 100% sure, but I heard he missed a walkthrough, which is just something that, for Jordan Addison especially, right? Someone who's suspended to start the year, like that just can't happen. And Justin Jefferson came out after the game and said, this is what I love Justin Jefferson so much. I think he's a great leader. He comes out and he goes, I gotta put him under my wing here. Like, this needs to stop, and it's on me to help. And I'm like, wow, dude, like, great thing to say from just, arguably the best player in football, but that can't happen with Addison anymore.
Yeah. He obviously did rebound in a significant way, so that's at least a good sign for him. He's a heck of a football player, so hopefully, for his sake, he can kind of get that side of it under control, because when he's out there, he's a heck of a weapon to have. All right, number two, what percentage of you kind of at least wanted to see a Max Brosmer second half, just to kind of like, even maybe like a drive or something, just to kind of see, was there any percent where all of you like, oh my God, I don't want any of this? Because to me, like, there was at least a percentage of me that's like, I kind of want to see what this looks like.
I would be going, Ziggy. You could go first.
For me, it is, can we go into negative percents here? Well, at least Carson Wentz, we sort of know that he knows how to play the game of football. Max Brosmer, I'd be happy with him taking snaps in games where we're up 30 plus, but I do not want to throw him out in like an absolute must-win game going into the second half.
What's really funny about that is I was like 90% wanting to see Max Brosmer in the second half.
That's awesome.
Like, I mean, we're going into half and we've had three straight punts, and Wentz, I did not think was playing great football. And to me, who's sort of, when you're tied with the Browns at halftime, you're losing to the Browns at halftime, there's this lingering, doubt for the rest of the season that starts to enter your mind, especially given the Vikings schedule coming up. And I was just like, they like this kid and he looked good in preseason. If we're going to have a year from hell, which it's kind of trending towards, why don't we just see what we have, right? If he comes out here and lights it up against the Browns defense, which he probably won't, but if he does, now maybe we have something to work with here. And let's just see what he has. Opposed to going
I feel like with a quarterback in general, there's always just like when it's their first time playing, there's always that mystery box element of just like, you just never know. You just never, ever know. You never know if there's going to be a Brock Purdy or a Tom Brady, or it might be a Brett Hundley. It might be something way worse. It might be something terrible, but there's just always that, like, until you actually see it out on the field, you just never quite know for sure. I feel like there's always an aura of like, I kind of just want to see it. I don't know what it's going to look like. It's probably going to be brutal, but I kind of want to see it.
Yeah, I was by no means was I hoping Carson Wentz's injury was worse than it was.
Right.
But given that, him running off to the locker room, I figured he was in decent shape, right? It wasn't like he's going to have to get some crazy shoulder surgery. But I definitely was intrigued, Andy. I wanted to see Max Brosmer, even if it was for a drive or two. And going against the Browns defense with 3 backup offensive linemen might not be the ideal situation to throw him into. But yeah, you're like, that intrigue was there for me. And I was a little disappointed. Obviously happy for Carson Wentz to be healthy, but I was a little disappointed that didn't happen. Although, we still did win the game.
My final of the 3 questions. What is a Dallas Turner? Does he exist in space time? Is he good? Is he not good? Is he okay? Because that was obviously a pretty big move for Minnesota to go out and get Dallas Turner. I feel like I never really hear his name and never feel like he's making an impact when the Vikings are playing the Packers. I don't go into the game feeling like, Dallas Turner's coming into, like, what is a Dallas Turner?
Zig, you want to take the first look at Dallas Turner?
I mean, it would be nice to be able to put all 3 of our sort of star defensive linemen on the field, but that's difficult to do. And I think Turner takes the brunt of that. Mm-hmm. But the thing is like, he doesn't show up super well on the stat sheet. I believe he only has 1 sack on the season when he was against the Falcons. But when he's in there, he does a good job generating hurries, generating pressure. Like, it feels like he's just one piece away from being the sort of player that we drafted him to be. Is he going to get there soon? He sort of has the fortune or misfortune, depending on how you look at it, of being behind a bunch of really talented players. He gets to learn from them, but he gets less playing time. But I still think when Dallas Turner is out there, if Brian Flores sticks in Minnesota, at some point, he's going to be an impact player for us. Whether that's taking 80 or 90% of the snaps, or it's a rotational player who can come in and just generate a lot of pressure on the quarterback, I do think he's someone who's going to be able to do something for us. But it's just hard to tell when he's never on the field.
Well, I mean, he Van Ginkel was out this game, so we saw more Dallas Turner, and the expectation, given what we traded, right? We traded a lot of assets to go up and get him, and a lot of people
I was not a fan of at the time.
You were not, yes, you were not. I was thrilled. I was like, people were talking about him being the best player in the draft defensively, and I think what it might be is another readjustment of expectations. We keep saying that with the Vikings, and eventually a readjustment of expectations could go down the path of bust. Like, that is a potential path. But I think this year, that's a little bit of a stretch for Dallas. He's played a little better every single week, it seems. I think that it's just taking longer for him to develop than we were hoping for. But you still see him. And now I think this week he had a nice pressure, but no one blocked him. But you're seeing against Atlanta, he had a sack. He had a couple nice pressures. I think that we're getting to the point with Turner this year where we just have to hope he's sort of like J.J. McCarthy, where by the end of the year, he could turn into the monster we were hoping for. It's just he's not playing like Jonathan Grenard. He's not playing like Van Ginkel when he's healthy. And those are all pro players, which is maybe an unfair expectation when he's playing alongside them. But I think he's doing a decent job of improving over the year.
22 years old for Dallas Turner.
Yeah,
too. Green Bay, obviously going through something similar with LVN, who is behind Rashawn Gary and behind Micah Parsons now as well. And I think for both sides, just when you draft a player that high at a premium position, you have such high expectations that they're just going to come in and absolutely tear it up from day one. And obviously hasn't been that case for Van Ness or for Dallas Turner, but a lot of meat still on that bone, and certainly don't want to give up on either player when they're that talented.
He was the 5th highest defensive grade for the Vikings this week, for what it's worth. So he's still, he's doing all right. Now at the same time, he had the 4th worst pass rush grade, which is not great. You don't want to see that from your edge rusher. But right. I think that he's a work in progress, and I haven't given up. I'm not even close to giving up on Dallas Turner. I think Brian Flores is still kind of learning how to use him best. It's just, he's not doing things that Jared Verse was doing in his rookie year with the Rams, and we're just going to have to be a little patient.
Is it safe to say, going into the bye week, I should say, that you feel worse about the Vikings than you did going into the season, that this has been a negative 5-game experience? Do you feel about the same? I would struggle to say that you're probably feeling better. Where are you at from a Vikings fan standpoint compared to where you were going into the season?
It has to be lower, right, Ziggy? I know I'm a little pessimistic at times, but it's hard to look at the year and say it's been a success. I think it's a testament to the guys on the team and O'Connell, honestly, that they're even 3-2. But it has not been by any means a pretty 3-2. This can easily be a 1-4 football team. Arguably should be a 1-4 football team. But at the same time, we do have to acknowledge yesterday they're playing without Aaron Jones, Donovan Jackson, Ryan Kelly, Brian O'Neill, Addison first quarter, who missed the first 3 games. Van Ginkel's out. Blake Cashman's out. I mean, they are just plagued by injuries too. So given the injuries, it helps. And McCarthy, obviously. But given the injuries, I think it puts things in a little bit of a different perspective of this team is finding ways to win, even though this is not even, it's a fraction of how good they were supposed to be. But I have to say I still feel kind of down, and it all goes back to the quarterback position, because you were hoping JJ McCarthy at the very least through 5 weeks. You can't really say you're hoping he could replicate Sam Darnold's season, but you're hoping that he could be in a position where this team looked relatively competitive in the landscape of the NFC. And when you compare the Vikings offense to Baker and the Bucks, to what Detroit's doing, to the highs of the Packers, we're just we're not even close. Like, we have not had one game where you go, wow, this offense can compete with these other juggernauts. So I feel worse. I have completely changed my hopes to, if they are even relatively close to the playoff competition towards the end of the year, that's great. I'm kind of expecting them to win like 7 games, which I was hoping for 10 going into the year.
What's funny, we'll get to this on our later segment, but the Vikings' rest of season win total right now is actually exactly the same as it was when the season started. So in some sense, if you're looking at it from the Vegas perspective, we're exactly where we should be. But the question is how you got here. And like you were saying, Paul, the way we got here was by JJ McCarthy really struggling through his first 2 games, getting injured, and now we sort of still have no idea what we've got in this guy. So it looks like he's returning to practice. I'm thinking he might be ready for the Eagles game. We'll see. But coming out of that bye, like the Eagles, the Chargers, the Lions, the Ravens, probably with Lamar back, all 4 of those teams, I think, are better than any team we've played up until this point. I think the next few weeks are going to be tough for the Vikings, and I've certainly moved my expectations lower. I do not expect them to get up to 8, 9, 10 wins, compete for the playoffs. I feel like I'm a Bears fan now. I just want to see our quarterback play okay, and if that happens, I don't care about the wins.
But here's one thing, though, that we're being really negative, it feels like, for a team that is coming off a win. And I think that the outlook, if you're being realistic, the outlook is a little negative. But we are 3-2. And we do, and McCarthy should be coming back, and winning does cure all. So, we should find some positives here of, okay, we're finding ways to win. Let's get healthier over the bye. If they come out and beat Philly, which sounds kind of crazy, but if they come out and beat the Eagles, Philly's not unbeatable this season, it doesn't look like. And they're a team that, they just had a 3-hour meeting or 2-hour meeting with Jalen Hurts, Saquon, and A.J. Brown. There are clearly some issues in Philadelphia. Despite the 4-1 record. If the Vikings were to somehow beat Philadelphia and JJ McCarthy looks decent, the vibe totally changes. Like, everything changes. And we've talked about this extensively on this show of how it's a week-to-week league. If we're 4-2 with a win freshly over the Eagles, all of a sudden it's like, all right, what can we do with this season? So I'm trying to hold back my complete doom and gloom until it's really time to be doom and gloom, despite the feeling, if that makes sense.
If I were looking at this from a Vikings standpoint, and thankfully I don't have to, but I'm going to anyway.
Congratulations.
I would say over the next 4 weeks, just take 2 weeks. Just go 1-1, and it's easier said than done. But over the next 4 weeks, just go 1-1 in each of the next 2 weeks. Like, if you can get one of Philly and LA, both of which are not exactly clicking on all cylinders right now, the Chargers especially, but the Eagles have a couple flaws. And then Detroit and Baltimore after that. Detroit's going to be tough, but Baltimore is a weird freaking team right now. You just get to somehow 1-1 in each of those 2 weeks. I feel like after that, things can maybe calm down a little bit. But on paper, not a very easy schedule with Philly, Chargers, Lions, and then Ravens coming up over the next 4. But you get to 2-2 somehow through those 4 games. I think you'd have to feel pretty good about where things were at.
Yeah, and I don't like to play. Actually, I'm sorry. I love playing the schedule game. Most people don't. But they got the Bears, the Packers at Seattle, Washington, at Dallas, who now looks tough, at the Giants, you should win. But I go through their schedule and I really see the hosting the Bears and going to the Giants is the two most winnable games they have left. And other than that, it's like, all right, you can roll the dice with Washington at home and at Seattle. Like, you don't feel great about it. So that's where I'm coming from. If it takes 10 wins to get to the playoffs, let's say, and it might not this year, maybe it'll take 9. But let's say it takes 10, it's hard to go through the Vikings schedule and find 7 games unless JJ McCarthy takes a major leap. Because Carson Wentz, if JJ gets hurt again and Wentz comes in, like we're a team like the Browns, we're a team like the Falcons game. I think with Carson Wentz, we're kind of like them, and that's just not good enough to really have any hopes. So I'm a little on that 8.5 for the NFC North. Like if we were to look at win totals, I would be under the 8.5 currently. Would you, Andy?
Fair. Yeah, I would for sure, mostly based on schedule and just because I don't know I like McCarthy's still such a mystery, but certainly the early indicators where it could be a struggle. And I think you have to play him at the same time. I will say, I think Wentz at this stage of his career is just a good backup quarterback. He did his job, right? Like 2-1 in a 3-game stretch without your starter. That's pretty much all you can ask for of a backup quarterback in the NFL. He did his job to kind of keep it in a 3-2, and you still got a chance. Because anything else, if you're sitting at 2-3 right now, or certainly 1-4, like it's done. Like it would feel done at this point. So yeah, kudos to Wentz for keeping it, at least in a 3-2 situation where now we can see what JJ McCarthy can do. I would think if he's going to play against Philly.
That's more part of it as well. As if you were to tell me at the start of the year, right, through 5 weeks, we'd have all those guys injured that we said Wentz would be in. Like we'd bring in Carson Wentz, and then also that we had the London trip and the Ireland trip. We're traveling for 2 weeks. Like I think Kevin O'Connell said in his post game speech to the team, he's like listed off all the adversities this team has faced already. He's like, we have a winning record right now, and we're winning football games. That at the very least, despite all the we can forecast doom and gloom for days as Vikings fans, but 3-2. We're still playing competitive football. Like we're going into that Philly game, and it's like, all right, let's save the season. Like let's prove to everyone that we can play. And if they do that, then that following Tuesday show, I mean, we're going to be having a blast together. At least Ziggy and I will. Looking at the other NFC North win totals, maybe just hit these real quick. The Bears right now are at 7.5 games. How do we feel about Chicago? Like I think we said at the end of last week's show we would much rather be in the Bears position than the Vikings. I'm assuming that still holds true for both of you guys.
Yeah, I will say yes, but Ziggy, you go.
Yeah, I mean, I believe in Caleb Williams more than I believe in JJ McCarthy. I think he's continued to look a little bit better. The Raiders game was not great, but the Bears have a couple winnable ones right now. They're going to play in Washington this week. They're going to host the Saints next week. Obviously, those aren't teams of the same caliber, but I think both of those are games Chicago could be winning. I like Chicago. I think they're probably going to finish ahead of the division, the Vikings, so I'll take the over on that.
You're going over 7.5?
Yeah.
I think I would as well. I think I'll take them about right at 8 wins. It'll be close. I think this Washington game is really fun from a standpoint of they're coming off the bye. They're coming off 2 consecutive wins, and they were in that Washington game last year where it still felt like they had a lot to play for, like they were maybe trending in an okay direction, and then the Hail Mary completely derails them, and they never recover. So I'm interested to see how they play this game in Washington. But then, yeah, you get to New Orleans. You've got Cincinnati on the schedule, New York on the schedule. Not to say anything here, but Minnesota on the schedule. I actually think Pittsburgh comes back down to earth a little bit. Cleveland. So, yeah, they have kind of 6 games that I think that they can. Now, I don't think they win all of those. And then finding more wins after that might be a little bit tougher. But, yeah, I'm intrigued by this Bears team, if nothing else. Actually, I'm going to take it back. I'm going to say they end up just under. I'm going to say they end up with 7 wins total. They'll end up with 5 more wins, but I think it's really, really close.
That's where I came down on 7 as well. But I do think the Bears have to be feeling good. Now, I saw some people were talking about Ben Johnson in the locker room after they beat the Raiders, saying like, that's what we do. And it was like, all right, you blocked the field goal to win the game against the Raiders team that has been just horrendous. But that's really just not who the Bears are. The Bears have been the team that they get walked off or they get the kick blocked. So I do think that they're actually in a spot where guys are like Tyreek Stevenson is starting to play a lot better now. And what he's going to get this week is going to be a tough one for Stevenson. Looking back on the Washington, I think this offseason, that's the only question he was basically being asked in training camp. It's like, all right, give the guy a break. But now this week, you got to think it's just going to be Monday night. What do you think they show the Hail Mary over under like 7.5 times?
I'll take the over.
So in some ways, this actually feels like another opportunity for the Bears to kind of like exercise their demons. And if they get a win here in Washington with those games against, as we said, going forward, the Saints, we'll see if Lamar's playing by then in Baltimore, and then in Cincinnati. Like a little 4-0 run here is in play for Chicago. And if they're sitting at 6-2, like this is all kind of things that if I were a Bears fan, I'd be fantasizing in my mind. I kind of like Chicago at the moment. I don't think, again, 7 wins is not a great year, but I think that the general direction of the team is starting to take shape under Johnson. And like this game in Washington to me is just a huge opportunity for all of the hopes that Bears fans had to be validated, because it's not the Commanders are not an unbeatable team. I don't think they're on the same tier as the Lions or the Eagles at the top, but that's a great win on the road, especially given what happened last year. So I'm going to take the under, but I'm pro Bears right now, which, a lot of our audience probably won't like to hear.
Hey friends, week 5 is officially in the books, which means it's time to start getting our sleeper picks in for week 6. And what better place to start than Thursday Night Football, Philly, New York. Maybe not the most epic game in the world, but this is what makes Sleeper so amazing. It always makes the games just a little bit more interesting. And right now, Sleeper's offering double promos. You know the one already, 100% match up to $100 by utilizing code Packaday. Again, 100% match up to $100 by utilizing that code Packaday. So get after that one. But maybe you're new to this whole thing. You can get a free $20 entry right now. No deposit required. It doesn't get any better than that. A free $20 entry with no deposit required. Terms and conditions apply. Check Sleeper for details. Operational in over 25 states already. But here's what I'm going with for Thursday Night Football. And I just wanted to show you, it doesn't need to be anything extravagant. I'm going 2 things. Cam Scattaboo, touchdown. Saquon Barkley, touchdown. Both of them, anytime touchdowns, more than half a touchdown, are winners here. So Cam Scattaboo, Saquon Barkley, I say they both score in this particular game. And if so, as you can see here, 3.24 times the amount that I entered. So a great opportunity to win. It makes watching the game so much more fun. Check it out over on Sleeper. You're not going to want to miss it. And again, make sure to utilize that code Packaday to get a 100% match up to $100 and take advantage of that free $20 play with no deposit required whatsoever. What are you waiting for? Go get after it right now.
How about the Lions at 11.5? It's a lot of wins.
11.5 wins is a lot. And I'm starting, for better or for worse, I'm starting to see flashbacks to the Lions last year when you hear about all these injuries adding up. Now, admittedly, of all those injuries last year, they won 15 games, which, I'm not a mathematician, but that's more than 11. But they've got a tough rest of schedule. They still have to play a lot of the better teams. Really, I think we're going to find out what to think about this team when they play Kansas City this week. Because it's easy to step back and say, well, they lost in Green Bay. That was the aberration. They've just rattled off 4 wins. But besides the Ravens game, beating the Bears, beating the Browns, beating the Joe Burrow-less Bengals is not that impressive. I like the Lions. I think they're a strong team, but 11.5 is just a lot of games. I think they're going to fall right in that 10 or 11 range of this rest of schedule. I'm going to take the under on that, even though they might embarrass me and just go 16-1.
They have the issues at corner right now. Terrion Arnold is out. DJ Reed is out. I think their defense is a little bit vulnerable. So I'm going to say the under as well. I think they finish right around 11 wins. I think it's really close. I certainly think that their schedule is difficult, but they're playing really good football right now at the same time. By the way, just a very quick aside at the moment. If, in fact, the Lions win this game and the Chiefs go to 2-4 this week, what is this AFC? At all. Like, you've got the Bills, who just lost to the Patriots in Buffalo. Teams with winning records include New England at 3-2, the Steelers at 3-1, which I don't really buy so far. They actually have a negative point differential. Pittsburgh does at 3-1 so far. Indy, I have no idea what to do with. Jacksonville, I'm semi intrigued by. Still don't totally buy it, although that was a huge win last night. The Chargers and Broncos are both 3-2, and then you would have the Chiefs at 2-4. It's just a horrible conference. It's a horrible, horrible conference. It is wild to see where the AFC is at right now.
This week, looking at the AFC this week, who are the top contenders coming into the year, right? The Chiefs, they lose. The Ravens, blown out, Lamar's hurt. The Bengals, blown out. Burrow's out for, probably the year. And then we're sitting back on Sunday Night Football, and especially people who are, we do our power ranking show tomorrow, Andy, and I was like, all right, I'll probably put Detroit 1, I'm thinking personally. Got Buffalo at 2. And then Buffalo loses. It's you just don't it's kind of awesome this year, the parity around the league. But it's also, you look at if you're a Steeler fan right now, our buddy Jack, who co-hosts our show with us, he's like, oh my God, we're going to beat the Browns and be 4-1, and the Rams are going to beat the Ravens. We're going to have a monster lead on this division here. Right now, the division, the 1 seed's the Colts. I have no idea what to think. If I'm power ranking the AFC, I still think I'd go Kansas City and then Buffalo, but it feels kind of.
I'd take Buffalo. I'd still take Buffalo. I think that's a one-off against New England, but I don't. Yeah, it's great. And again, the big thing is if the Chiefs lose to the Lions, not to sidetrack us here, but they'd be 2-4. The Ravens are right now 1-4. It's just a really crazy conference.
The Texans, the Texans, just I don't know what to think of them. You do your job and you blow out the Ravens, but they have not looked like that. Maybe we finally saw Houston get their act back together. I have no idea either. If you're a Dolphins fan, or our producer Zach for our show is a big Dolphins fan, you're sitting there at 1-4, man, if we had just walked away with a couple more wins here, 3-2, anyone can compete in this conference, it seems, at the moment. Actually, you know what? Again, sorry to distract, but who would you feel most confident right now if you were an AFC team? Which team would you want to be a fan of in the AFC right now?
I mean, it's got to be Buffalo, right?
Buffalo, yeah, for sure, Buffalo.
Okay, wait. All right, let me rule out Buffalo. Let me rule out Buffalo and Kansas City. Who would you pick? Because I actually think I might go Denver.
I was going to say Denver.
Which is really annoying because I can't stand the Broncos because of Sean Payton. And, we don't have to get into 2009. But that defense is really good. And I know Bo Nix has struggled throughout the year, but I'm kind of coming around now. And I'm watching him play in Philly in that fourth quarter, and he's just dropping dimes. Cortland Sutton is playing really well. That team with their schedule, I think that they're the team I'm looking at. Not the Chargers, not the Jaguars, not the Steelers, not the Colts. Denver's the one that I'm paying attention to elevate tiers at the moment.
There are 5 teams that have Super Bowl odds that are less than 1,000. The Bills are actually number 1 on everyone's chart so far. So whatever site you go to, I have a list of all of them across from each other. The Bills have the best Super Bowl odds of anybody. Then for the most part, it's the Lions. Then for the most part, it's the Eagles, then the Packers, then the Chiefs. And everyone else after that, the best odds you're going to find is pretty much 1,600, 1,700, maybe 1,500. And you know who that team that's next on the list of most of those teams are?
The Minnesota Vikings. Oh.
The Ravens, who have won 1 game so far, are the next up after that, around plus 1,500, plus 1,600. That's how insanely wild this entire thing is.
The Ravens are still favored to win their division.
AFC North. I know.
Somehow.
Crazy.
Oh, no, I think they're going to lose to the Rams, and then I think Lamar's going to come back after the bye, and they're just going to rip off. I'm telling you, people are going to be out on Baltimore at 1-5 going into their bye. Lamar will come back. Some of those defenders will come back. I think they're going to rip off 9 or 10 in a row. And
9 wins probably might get you there in the AFC too.
Yeah.
That's well within the realm of possibility too. It's crazy. This is why the NFL is so fun. And this is why 5 weeks, I should say, into the season, 4 games for Green Bay. It's none of these teams are feeling great at the moment. The team that has the highest Super Bowl odds, or the best Super Bowl odds of any team, Buffalo, just lost to New England at home this past week. It's really crazy out there right now.
Ziggy, didn't you say that's why if you were a Packer fan right now, you'd actually kind of have a sigh of relief with what's going around the rest of the league, right?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about the AFC right now, but if you look in the NFC, like you might have thought the Rams were a juggernaut. They just suffered a brutal loss. The Eagles, nothing has gone right. The only teams with fewer yards per game than their offense are like the Titans and the Bengals. It's like the Lions are good, but you just beat them in week one, right? Maybe you can do it again. Like if I'm a Packers fan sitting back here, even though you've had sort of a disappointing start, almost everybody else has too. So I think it's a good position for a lot of those teams, but especially a team like Green Bay that has a lot of talent but has gotten off to a slower start than the first 2 weeks might have made you think, to say, look, we can absolutely still compete for the division. We can still compete for the 1 seed. And if we don't, going on the road to play a lot of these teams, none of them really look unbeatable.
Let's also keep in mind, right, with all the intense reactions here to these teams, Philadelphia last year was 2-2 going into their week 5 bye. And they came out of it and they ripped off, what was it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So they basically won every other game except for the Washington game where Kenny Pickett was playing.
You're saying the Packers have a better record than that coming out of their bye this year. So
what I'm saying is, even though right now it doesn't feel like there's any juggernaut team, the way we look at this in early December can be very, very different. So, all these teams you're kind of feeling it out. You just need to survive September. And that's something that the Bengals, right, for a couple of years now haven't done. That's something the Ravens, despite how many games I might think they win in a row, you don't want to be in a position where you have to win 9-10 games in a row to make the playoffs. So I think any of these NFC teams, especially if we're going to take a look at the Packers now and their win totals 10.5 the rest of the year, despite the tie and despite the horrible Browns loss, you're still feeling pretty good if you're a Green Bay fan that we have all the pieces to make this work. We have a favorable schedule coming up. Maybe we can be that team that catches fire. And when we look back on things in mid-December, we're like, okay, here we are at like 9-2-1 and control our destiny for the 1 seed. I think that's certainly in play for Green Bay. And I'd probably lean over on the 10.5. I think they come in at like 11.
I would go over as well. I feel good. You just go back. I'll go under on Detroit just so I wrap that one up too, but I'll go over on Green Bay. Probably just pure homer on this one, but I actually am not as fearful of Green Bay's schedule as what it looked like at one point. Philly is certainly there. Detroit's certainly there. Denver. Those are the 3 big games. Everyone else is not having great starts to their season. Pittsburgh is, but again, I'm not sure I'm totally buying that yet. Mm-hmm. So I think this is a schedule that Green Bay can actually rip off some wins. I could still see them falling below Detroit in the final standings. Obviously, my win totals don't totally add up there if that's the case, but I still think that's going to be between those two. But I'll take the over on Green Bay just based on their schedule coming up.
How about you?
I know at the start of the year, a lot of Packers fans were upset about the week 5 bye, but I think given the way this first part of the season played out, it actually ended up being a good thing. Being able to step back, wash off the stink of the last 2 games and say, look, we've got the talent. We get to play the Bengals and the Cardinals coming out of this bye. Let's get some wins and just get back to playing strong football. I think this could not have come for a better time for them. I agree. I think they're going to build up a lot of momentum over these next few games. Take that when Philadelphia comes into Green Bay and rattle off a lot of wins. I think they're going over.
That Dallas tie also may start looking more and more reasonable given, Dak looked unbelievable against the Jets. If you're going to get MVP level Dak Prescott, that's, the Cowboys are a competitive team, and there's someone that you don't want to play week in and week out because he can get to that level. So I think I'm at Detroit 12 and Green Bay 11, whatever, and 1 that they'll be. Okay. And Detroit would win the game by a half a game, essentially, in the North. Andy, when we look ahead to week 6 now, so the Vikings have a bye. We talk about nice times to have a bye. The Vikings can hopefully get healthy as well. But the Packers come out of it, and they're hosting the Bengals. Is there any scenario other than utter domination that leaves you satisfied or happy with this team?
No, I can't imagine that. There's a world in which you're up 31-0 and Cincinnati in the fourth quarter goes on a meaningless 17-0 run or something like that. Mm-hmm. And it's it's 31-17 and it maybe doesn't look quite as impressive, but it's all kind of garbage time stuff where it's like, fine, whatever. But like outside of something like that, I really don't think so. This is one where, especially after it felt like you didn't kind of play your best football, clearly didn't play their best football against Cleveland, didn't go for the kill against Dallas. You've got a team for the third consecutive week. You're the pretty strong favorites to win the game, more this week than any of the last 2 games that they've played. You have to come out and play your best football. You have to show that you have some level of killer instinct and that you can take care of the dregs of the league when you play against them without having to really battle for it, especially at home. You beat Detroit and Washington both at home pretty easily. You can't win both of those games at home pretty easily and then struggle or certainly lose against Cincinnati with a quarterback that just got there a few days ago. Listen, we're all just talking about how the NFL is insane and you can't, take anything for granted week to week. If you can't take for granted a 14.5-point spread against a team that just bought their quarterback for nothing today, there's a lot more issues in Green Bay than I think any of us would have expected. I expect Green Bay to win big. Maybe it's one of those where it's like, I don't know, at the very beginning of the fourth quarter, it's like, like a 23-16 game or something. It's like, holy cow, the Bengals are within 7. And then Green Bay gets a field goal and like a pick 6 and wins by 17. And maybe it's like, that's as close as it should possibly get, is like, wow, it's within 7 in the fourth. And even that, I'd be like, why is it within 7 within the fourth? So no, this is one you got to take care of business.
Yeah, I was going to say, even like 23-16, if you're a Packer fan, that would almost feel like we're Notre Dame guys, Andy. And every now and then we'd have like, Ball State came in. And I remember the crowd was doing the wave like late third quarter. And it was like 16-13, a pivotal third down stop against Ball State. And I'm like, what the hell are we doing? Like, we got to get up we got to get a stop here. Like, I kind of feel like if the Packers are in a 7-point game going into the fourth quarter, you probably feel okay that you'll still win it. But there's going to be the people who are like, real football fans going like, wait a second, like this should not be happening right now. I was looking at the Browns statistically. I'm sorry, the Bengals statistically while you were talking about them. They're last in the league in yards per game.
In everything.
They are 29th in the league in points per game. Defensively, they are allowing the 3rd most yards per game, and they are allowing the 3rd most points per game. Like this, if that is not an indication of how great Joe Burrow was last season.
Yes.
Like to just even have that team at 8 wins. I was getting a little flack in our comment section on Sunday because I said I think they might be the worst team in the league. Arguably, like I think they're a surefire top 5 worst team in the league right now.
For sure.
Like to me, this is, and I don't like putting beat the crap or bust on a game, but if you don't beat the crap out of the Bengals, if it is close, I do think it raises a lot of questions of like, okay, well, like how good are we really? Like, can we really put ourselves in the tier that we want to, like you said? So I'm with you. I think it has to be an ass whooping, honestly.
We're in lockstep, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, the Bengals have not played a close game since Joe Burrow went down, right? Going into the fourth quarter in their last 3 games, they've been down 48-3, 21-3, and 28-3. Like, it has not been remotely close. And I know they've added Joe Flacco, but Joe Flacco looked terrible with the Browns. I have a very hard time believing that this is the acquisition that's going to like turn around their season. And frankly, if you're the Packers and Joe Flacco, it's not like he was very good in the first game they played against him. But if somehow like Joe Flacco is the magic key to beating the Packers, expect to see one of the teams later on their schedule trade for him again. No, I mean, it's just you can't let this happen.
I will say this. The only thing that I will accept if the Packers lose this game to the Bengals is if they win or tie every single one of their other games and go undefeated and win the Super Bowl, and their only 2 losses all season long are against Joe Flacco with 2 different teams. That is the only outcome I would find acceptable and the only semi-amusing / entertaining fact I would find out of this. So Packers, if you lose this game, the only way to redeem yourself, no other way, there's literally no other way, is by winning or tying every other game and winning the Super Bowl.
Is there anything, Andy? Because I always think as a Viking fan, whenever we have games like this, and we do have games like this. The Vikings certainly do have games like this where you're just supposed to win. I always think in the back of my mind, I'm like envisioning the worst case scenario of, all right, here's how we implode. I'm having trouble finding that. Where would it be for Green Bay if things were to go wrong? Like, where can this happen?
So that it would be the magic concoction of three things. The first is that the two good things that the Bengals are actually good at, Jamar Chase and T. Higgins at receiver and Trey Hendrickson at defensive end, are what, basically they lean on, meaning Flacco is just good enough to be able to get the ball and just kind of give jump balls to Higgins and Jamar Chase. And those two just beat Keyshawn Nixon and Nate Hobbs and Carrington Valentine and just kind of abuse those two on the, or those corners on the outside. That would be the offensive game plan. And then Trey Hendrickson is doing everything in his power to try to keep, his team within games and causing chaos. Green Bay's offensive line has not been very good. And we saw, although I don't think Hendrickson is Myles Garrett, Hendrickson, with a couple other solid pieces on that defensive line. We'll see if Shamar Stewart can play. They get after a Packers offensive line that hasn't been very good so far. And that's how they're able to keep Green Bay within, shouting distance to maybe make some sort of crazy play at the end. And then it's just Green Bay doing Green Bay things, having blocked extra points for 2 points, having blocked field goals at the end of the game, throwing an interception when you can least throw an interception, just those sort of things. That would be the formula here. Obviously, hopefully that's not the case. And I think Cincinnati would need all of those things. That's literally what I said basically going into the Cleveland game, though, is that like Myles Garrett and the defense has to take over the game. You have to self-implode. Special teams needs to be an issue. And literally the perfect formula comes to fruition and Cleveland gets the win in that game. So I'm not saying that this is equal. Green Bay's at home. I expect Green Bay to win big. These are my least favorite games, by the way, and not because I'm dreading the worst, just because like we talked about earlier of like, there's almost no good scenario. You win by like 30 and everyone's like, yeah, that's cool. It's the Bengals. Like it's like you were expected to win by 30. Like you win by like 13 or 10, 7, anything like that. And you're like, does that even feel good? Like, yeah, you won. Great. But like, it was not impressive. You actually probably feel like you lost that game. And if you certainly tie or lose the game, it's a complete catastrophe. So it just feels like these are the games where almost nothing good can come out of it.
I think if you have a game like the Lions did last week, where for Detroit fans who want to hear more about the Lions, like you guys just kind of rolled in that game. But if you're in a situation where you're in complete control, and then the Bengals, like that was a half-hearted comeback, really. I mean, at no point were you really thinking this can be a game. I think if you guys have that sort of a performance, and that might be what I actually expect, then I'd feel pretty good as a Packer fan, because we're coming off 2 games too, where this was the narrative coming in. Oh, all right, they're going to roll Cleveland because they just rolled the Commanders and the Lions. All right, you lose to Cleveland. Well, we're going to roll the Cowboys because they can't stop anyone. That's where I just think you get the win, period. You're feeling a little better. And then we can start, figuring out how good we feel after whatever the win looks like.
Fair.
But what I'd want to see if I were a Packer fan, and I actually think this almost, like this needs to happen, is you guys have 2 turnovers all year. You have 2 interceptions for us, right? That's it. I don't think there's any fumble recoveries.
Yeah, I think that sounds right.
You saw what the Vikings did to the Bengals. You saw what the Ravens did to the Browns and the Lions did to both teams. Like, you turn these guys over. You have to turn over Jake Browning. You have to turn over Joe Flacco. Like, bury them, right? And that's what I'd want to see. Like, dial up the pressure. Micah Parsons has been getting called out by a lot of people. Like, Micah needs to play like a superstar. I know he's been very good, but I want to see Micah do one of those Micah Parsons, Max Crosby, Myles Garrett things and just beat up this team that you need to beat up defensively. So I want to see them, if I were a Packer fan, which I'm not, I'd want to see them force a lot of turnovers in this game and make the bad teams make mistakes, which they have not really done.
It's been one of their issues so far, is just not winning the turnover battle. And you're the casino. If you win the turnover battle, the house is in your favor every single time. So they have to do a much better job of forcing those turnovers. And if they can do that in this game again, to me, it's a win. I don't think there's a world in which Cincinnati can win this game without winning the turnover battle.
Ziggy, did you see, I'm sure you saw this as someone who's a fan of stats, but the Jets were the first team in the history of the NFL to not force a turnover in the first 5 weeks of the season.
Yeah, I mean, that is rough. And, Joe Flacco, besides the Green Bay game, has not had a time this year where he hasn't had at least 2 and sometimes 3 turnovers in a single game. there should be no issue winning this turnover battle for Green Bay.
Yeah, that's the only world.
Justin Fields stat as well, since we're on Jet stats.
What?
Justin Fields is now 0-26 as a starter when the opponent scores 21 points or more. 0-26.
Yeah, that's almost unfathomable.
Right?
That's almost 2 seasons worth of games.
0-26. We're not talking like 31 or more. Like, yeah, if you give 31 or more, those are tough games to win. 21 or more, like you just get 3 touchdowns against Justin Fields and you're a guaranteed winner.
But he's
like,
also,
that is a wild stat.
He's someone that's had, like, there's a handful of really good Justin Fields performances too. Like, you would have thought one of them, I guess if they had beat the Steelers, that would have been one win right there. But he's had a couple games where you go like, all right, Justin Fields, he looked pretty good in that game. So that's really surprising that he hasn't had one, like, competitive back and forth game that he was just, at some point you think you'd luck into a win there, right?
You would think.
Okay, why don't we do our predictions as we're wrapping up the show? So we're all on the Packers to win. I guess it's all just by a point.
We have to predict if they cover the spread. 14.5 is the spread. So do they cover the 14.5? That's got to be the question, because everyone's going to predict they win the game, of course.
Yeah, I think they're going to cover the spread. I'm so out on Cincinnati.
Cincinnati, they keep talking about we're hopeful we can start Joe Flacco because sources have told us he's a fast learner for the offense. That's never what you want to hear going into a game if you're a Bengals fan. No, Green Bay has got to cover this.
Yeah, I'm going to hedge my bets here, and I'm going to say they win by 14 and just don't cover the spread. So I'll say they don't, but it'll be close. Close meaning they win by 14.
Are you all right, Andy? It seems like you have a little PTSD from the past couple
not
weeks.
Not necessarily PTSD. Like I said, these are just like the least favorite games that I can go into, because it just doesn't feel like anything like positive can happen. Like, again, even 31-0, just like, yeah, cool. It was the Bengals though. It's like, all right, whatever.
The next game, I think we're going to walk out of it with some juice to Packer Nation is if you guys go into Pittsburgh and beat the Steelers on Sunday Night Football. Like, if you beat the Bengals, win at Arizona, who will probably find some very creative way to botch the game, and then you beat the Steelers and have 3 in a row, beating Rodgers, I think that'll be the, like, okay, let's recapture the energy moment. You guys kind of need that. You need another insert of energy. Okay, Lions go to the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football. This feels like a real opportunity for Detroit to kind of separate themselves as the number 1 team in football.
I'm going to go Chiefs. I want to say Lions, actually. I think the Lions are the better team. I think this is just some crazy Sunday Night Football Arrowhead stuff, and I think the Chiefs are just going to be a little bit more desperate in this one, to not go 2-4 on the season. So I'm going to say Chiefs, but I do not feel good about it.
Kansas City was not nearly as bad as they looked, or as the final score would suggest in that Jaguars game. That's a game they probably should have won. Yeah. But we are just seeing more and more uncharacteristic mistakes from Mahomes and the Chiefs. The Lions are an aggressive team. They're very good at getting their opponents to make mistakes. I think they're going to go in and steal one in Arrowhead.
I do too, Ziggy. And this is not anti-Chiefs for me, because everyone knows I maybe give the Chiefs a little too much love, but Rashee Rice is still out. I know the Lions are banged up at cornerback, but there's something about Detroit. I think I wish I was a Lions fan right now. I can't believe I'm saying that. Like, everything the Lions do, I'm like, damn, I'd love for the Vikings to be like that. And I said it on our show Sunday. I think they're kind of road proof. Like, their FU mentality is just awesome. And I think they're going to go in and beat the Chiefs like they did it a couple of years ago. I think they're going to do it again. And if they do that, that's when I'll finally sit back here and go like, all right, like, they beat the Chiefs. They won at Baltimore. Like, they won at Cincinnati. Obviously, Burrow's out. But those were 3 games I was hoping they'd lose coming into the year. Like, they're just really good. They're just really good.
Just really quick on the Chiefs. Packers fans will know this because I throw this out there every once in a while, but maybe you guys know it too. Patrick Mahomes, his first year was 22 of 35, 284 yards and an interception. In his first full year as a starter in 2018, he played in all 16 games, started all 16 games. What do you think his general stats were in that first season?
His first year with Kansas City?
Yeah, as the starter in KC.
Oh,
full year as a starter.
I think he I think he averaged like 2 point. Then he throw for 50 touchdowns, like 2.85 touchdowns a game and 325 yards.
Okay.
Let's see. He threw for. I know he threw for over 5,000 yards. That would come out to something like 320. And yeah, he threw for 50 touchdowns.
Okay, so you guys know it. It just always blows my mind every single time. But his very first year as a starter, he threw for 5,000 yards, 50 touchdowns, 12 interceptions in his very first full year as a starter in KC.
I don't think he's gotten close to 41 that except in 2022.
Yeah, 2022, 41 and 12 was the next one. But like, just talk about taking the entire league by storm in his first year as a starter. Sorry, not to sidetrack.
Oh, no, he's a beast.
Every single time I look at that stat as his first year as a starter, it's just one of the most remarkable things. 91 and 25 in his career in the regular season as a starter, too. It's crazy.
Yeah, that is... It is the kind of game where if the Chiefs... I still think they're okay. I think they're going to get in. Like, they have a tough schedule, and they've lost... Like, the Chiefs could very easily be 5-0 this year as well. They've had I know they haven't played great, but they've been a play or two away in each of those games from finding a way to win the way they did last year. I still feel great about them when Rashee Rice gets back and everyone can get a little healthier going into the playoffs. So as long as they can keep the ship afloat. But I just think Detroit steals this one. And the last one, Monday Night Football. So we got 2 late night NFC North games this week. The Bears at the Commanders in the rematch of the Hail Mary game.
I'm going to take, man, I don't feel good about this one. I'm going to take Washington, but I really don't feel good about it. I think Chicago really tries to extract some revenge from the Hail Mary game a year ago, but I would, how awesome would it be if Chicago lost in a Hail Mary in this game?
That would be priceless.
The back-to-back Hail Mary losses to Jaden Daniels. That would be amazing. But I'm going to take Washington, but I don't feel great about it.
Dan Wiederer wrote a great piece on Tyreek Stevenson that's worth reading and sort of how he managed to handle that Hail Mary. But I think this Commanders team, when Jaden Daniels is playing, is very, very good. I feel like they dropped off a lot of people's power rankings because Jaden Daniels wasn't in. This team wasn't very good. But they're coming off a great win against LA. I know the Chargers have been up and down, but they look like a much more complete team than last year. The defense is better. The run game is better. It's tough for me to take Chicago going in and beating a Commanders team that's got some momentum and looks better than last year. So I think it's going to be the same result.
I've got Washington as well for the same reasons as you, Ziggy. Andy, for a little context there, we do a segment called the Joint Power Rankings. I'm not sure if you've ever seen our graphic, but we go 10-1, and we each take a turn putting a team in. And last week, Ziggy got a lot of flack because he put the Commanders in at 7. And then, Jack had like the Seahawks at 5. But it wound up happening where Ziggy had the choice of Rams or Eagles at number 1. And he had the Rams higher than the Eagles in his power ranking. So the Eagles were off our top 10 board. And people were going through going where was the mistake made? And most people went with Washington at 7 being the major mistake in the poll. And Ziggy on Sunday, he's like, well, hello now. Like, Eagles lose, Commanders blow out the Chargers. So that was a nice little jab there from Ziggy regarding the Commanders. All right, so
we can't keep Vikings fans out of this. So we don't have a game this week, but I'm not going to ask you about the following week prediction, but I'll ask you this. True or false, JJ McCarthy will be the starter against the Eagles?
1,000% true. Like, zero doubt in my mind.
I'm going to be the most pessimistic Vikings fan there can be because it feels like that's how season is going to go. JJ McCarthy will start the game. He will not finish the game.
Oh, gosh.
Okay.
That is the worst
That's a great way to end.
So that's just brutal. Now, Ziggy, is it because we're getting blown out, or is it because he re-aggravates the ankle?
The Eagles' defensive line is going to take him out of that game.
Boy.
I see it right now. Sometimes you just get a sense that something really bad is going to happen to your team. I felt that way before the Rams game last year, both times. I feel this way now. Something really bad to the Minnesota Vikings is happening in that Eagles game.
You're starting to sound like a true Viking fan. What did it take? A year and a half? 2 years?
I'm so glad I asked that question now.
Yeah, now that'll just linger for the next 2 weeks and for us as we're waiting for this game. But all right, we'll be back on Tuesday, and by all indications, it should be a Packer win here, and Andy should be in a very good mood. If the Packers lose, Andy, we wish you a happy vacation. Where would you go?
Thank you.
Cabo? Where
yeah, Cabo might be. It's somewhere warm, and there will be no Packers podcasting. We're just going to take a week off, regroup. We're going to burn all the tape. We're going to burn everything. We're going to start fresh, rise from the ashes after that. So I don't know where I'm going.
So I guess a win-win either way for Andy Herman next week.
Yes.
So we'll try to be optimistic. All right, Ziggy, we'll end with we are coming off a win, so we'll give our little skull here, and we'll let Andy send it off since his team is in fact playing this week.
All right. Well, of course, until next time, and as always, go Pack Go, and you guys will talk next week.